Top 10 important things that happened in less than a second. During the history of the universe, time is mostly irrelevant. The stars are born, they live, and they die. Billions of years go by without anyone noticing. Einstein told us that time really matters only when someone there is affected. In this list, we will take a look at events or inventions for which basic science can be measured in less than a second. Number 10. Extinction event, asteroid impact in Mesozoic era. During the last extinct event, at the end of the Mesozoic era, 66 million years ago, a mountain-shaped asteroid crashed to the ground at about 40,000 miles per hour. Its intensity was about 100 trillion tons of TNT. According to scientist Joanna Morgan, anything within 600 miles of the impact site was killed by fireballs instantly or within seconds. In the blink of an eye, the most devastating event in the history of the planet began. Of course, the damage was not limited to immediate destruction. The long-term effect was the complete extinction of dinosaurs, with 75% of all species on Earth. Number 9. Conscious thought. Archimedes was working to solve the problem of whether a crown was made of solid gold when he famously stood up from his bathroom and shouted, "Eureka!" and ran naked through the streets. He had realized that when the water rises as soon as he sits down, the pleasing force on his body is equal to the weight of the displaced water. Now he had a method of measuring the amount of gold in the crown which was used by his Archimedes principle. While Archimedes had been working on solving this problem for some time, his Eureka, the moment came in an instant. Studies of the response of neurons to stimuli show that it takes anywhere between 300 and 500 milliseconds, half a second, for the brain to react and send signals to the body. The next time you get lost in a daydream, maybe the next big invention will come to your mind. It happens fast, try and write it down. Number 8. The bullet that killed Lincoln. On April 14, 1865, while President Abraham Lincoln and his wife were enjoying Our American Cousins at the Ford Theater in Washington, D.C., John Wilkes Booth snatched them into a private room, and shot them with a bullet. Caliber Derringer pistol Lincoln's back of the head. Although it took Lincoln about 99 hours to expire, it was the process that led to his death. As small as Derringer is, the bullet comes out of the gun with amazing speed even after the trigger pull. When the hammer of a gun hits the firing pin, the bullet goes anywhere from 500 to 700 feet per second. It took about a few thousandths of a second for the bullet to travel through the barrel. While in the field of handguns slowly, some can reach 2,000 feet per second today. Number 7. Edison turns on his light bulbs. Thomas Edison was not the first to use electricity to light a room. In 1802, Humphrey Dewey invented the first electric light, known as the electric arc lamp. However, it did not stay bright for long, and for everyday use. It was very bright. In 1874, Henry Woodward and Matthew Evans, medical electricians from Toronto, made their lamps using a variety of carbon rods filled with nitrogen in glass cylinders. He was unable to sell his invention, and ended up selling his patent to Edison. Edison will complete his work and revolutionize the light bulb. On December 31, 1879, Edison flipped a switch that caused electric current to run through the wires at about the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second in a vacuum. Although the bulbs used by Edison 140 years ago may have illuminated one or two completely, it has taken only a fraction of a second in historical light since the discovery of fire. Number 6. Radio, first wireless message across the Atlantic. Using Samuel Mercer's code, the telegraph required a key, a battery, a wire, and a pole line between the wire and the receiving stations. The telegraph has been in use for almost 50 years when Guglielmo Marconi came up with his wireless version. In the late 19th century, Marconi proved everyone wrong by sending a wireless message across the Atlantic. Marconi was in Canada when he received a message from England. The message was simple, Morse code signal for the letter S. The transmission did not follow the rotation of the Earth as some had suggested, but rather reflected the ion fault and returned to Canada. Radio waves travel at the speed of light. Due to environmental interference, the transmission was still very close. Number 5. Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings. Two atomic bombs dropped on Japan in 1945, Little Boy on Hiroshima and Fat Man on Nagasaki in the aftermath of World War II. Just change the bombs caused devastating damage that will last for decades. The Little Boy was a uranium-fueled bomb that weighed about 13 kilograms. Fat Man was powered by platinum and weighed 21 kilograms. When a free neutron collides with the nucleus of an atom of radioactive matter, it knocks 2 or 3 more neutrons free. This causes energy emissions, and newly released neutrons carry out more nuclear attacks. This chain of energy release reacts almost immediately. A free neutron travels at about 3% of the speed of light. Depending on the number of generations required for sequencing, the whole process takes a microsecond, or a millionth of a second. Los Alamos physicists have coined the term shake this time as fast as a sheep's tail moves. In just 2 deaths, between 60,000 and 80,000 people in Hiroshima erupted in Nagasaki. Number 4. Transistor switching speeds. Invented in late 1947, the transistor was something that revolutionized the electronics industry in the 20th century. Inventors William Shockley, John Bardeen, and Walter Bretton eventually won the Nobel Prize for their efforts. Early German transistors reached speeds of up to 60 GHz, meaning the switch took about 20 nanoseconds, 20 billionths of a second. Improvements such as the conversion of germanium to silicon, and the creation of digital transistors, transistor chips with built-in resistors, significantly increased the capabilities of the transistor. Today, high-speed switching transistors can operate at an amazing 800 GHz or more. Number 3. Internet's first message. On October 29, 1969, using an experimental connection called ARPANET, UCLA researchers sent the first message to network computers. Read the message LO received by Stanford researchers. The purpose was to read Logan because it was the password of the system, yet the system crashed after only 2 letters. Both schools recently installed interface message processors, or routers, as we now know them. Once Stanford got the IMP, a high-speed line was set up to connect the two. There was now a 2-node network, enabling someone to use a computer at another school to access resources on another school's computer. At that time, the speed of the airplane line was 50 kilobits per second. With 8 bits in a byte, 2 letters of the alphabet took 16 bits. After a bit of math, we get something in the neighborhood of 10,000 seconds per second in transmission time. Not surprisingly, we get so angry today when it takes even more seconds to load a page on the internet. He set the bar high in 1969. Number 2. Search engine results. 1990 saw the creation of Archie, widely regarded as the first search engine. There are many ways to narrow down searches using Archie, and it took longer than the various parameters chosen to return search results. Archie, and the Ultimate Friends Veronica and Jughead, only had the ability to find titles and explanations. None of them compiled the contents of any of these documents. Over the next few years, many more search engines popped up, but no one crawled the entire text of every indexed web page until the 1994 web crawler. We all remember using Lycos, AskExit, AltaVista, and JVS at one time or another. We also remember staying on the dial-up and waiting for what seemed like forever, actually, just a few painful seconds, for our results. When Google jumped on the bandwagon in the late 90s, they began to use algorithms that mattered. Page rating. Today, Google is a censorship driven mostly by cache, but searches on any modern search engine and it always takes less than a second. Great search sites like DuckDuckGo don't show all the things that are found in their methods to give us their fast results. But when it's fast, what difference does it make? Number 1. Supernovae. There is evidence that supernovae are ultimately responsible for sowing seeds in galaxies, solar systems and our small blue circle throughout the universe. Scientists measured the remains of the Cassiopeia AK-1680 explosion, which contained calcium, sulfur, silicon, iron and most of the oxygen. They found small amounts of phosphorus, carbon, nitrogen and hydrogen. Everything needed to make DNA was there. A supernova near home has changed the dynamics of the region, causing rapid lightning strikes, forcing its ancestors out of the trees and forcing them to adapt quickly to new conditions. Supernovae are usually the primary catastrophe. When a star reaches 10 to 50 times the mass of our Sun, hydrogen is depleted and it begins to burn its helium. It burns continuously on the table by successive elements until it becomes iron, which cannot burn it. Nothing can stop the core of it from falling, and 23% of the outer edges at the speed of light, 70,000 meters per second. After a quarter of a second, the rest of the material moves away from the iron core, creating the initial phase of the shockwave. Over the last 1,000 years, man has been able to look up at the sky and observe 3 different supernovae. We have already come down from the trees. If the next sight we see is close to us, everyone learns to swim better.